Cam Ward, Riley Leonard, Dillon Gabriel, they're headed to the transfer portal. We're going to talk about if we agree with those decisions and what teams make the most sense. All of that and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson, always on the ones and twos. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a national scout and a senior draft analyst. Thank you guys for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. I got to kick this intro to my guy, Mr. LSU Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champion with them LSU Bengal Tigers. You can find and follow him on X at The Talent Code. Keep talking to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? This is Keith Sanchez, man. The other side of this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, man, where we talk everything college football, we talk everything NFL football, and like we always like to say, it all starts with the NFL Draft, where there's NFL draft philosophies, roster management, right? And we even implement what DP, a little transfer portal talk, man, to talk about these quarterbacks that I guarantee you they will be draft prospects because we had draftable grades. Sometimes we like these guys or not, and they're going to be very familiar names. They're put in the right situations. You're talking about high-level quarterbacks. We wanted to jump into this transfer portal conversation to talk about a couple of these quarterbacks. DP, man, we have Cam Ward, right, quarterback for Washington State. Well, he transferred from what was the smallest school?
Incarnate Word,
Washington State. Then you have Riley Leonard, Duke quarterback, right, who some people thought he was going in the first, second round this year. He's jumping to Notre Dame. Then you have Dillon Gabriel. Dillon Gabriel said, I'm a free agent. I just slung the rock at Oklahoma. I'm a free agent. I need to figure this thing out. But before we get into this conversation, man, about these two quarterbacks, why don't you hit them with our title sponsor?
This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code all lowercase LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Keith, Cam Ward, 6'2", 225, a young man that Keith, outside of one season, has thrown for, his first year at the Incarnate Word. In 2020, he's thrown for over 3,000 yards each season after that. 4,600 in 2021, 3,200 in 2022, and 3,700 in 2023. And he is heading to the transfer portal. And Keith, there's some rumbles of a Buckeye Nation maybe looking in his direction. When you think about Cam Ward, right? This was a guy that we thought day two type of prospect for the 2024 NFL draft class, right? A guy that you take day two, and if he had finished the season strong, some teams might say, let's go and get him in the back end of the first, have that contract control and that fifth-year option. Tools. He's an air raid quarterback, Keith. When you think about, first of all, what are your thoughts on him transferring? And secondly, what is a destination you would love to see him go to?
Yeah, my thoughts on him transferring, I'm going to say, and it's not a sarcastic word, but good for him in the sense of the fact that I think he needs to go, right? He needs a different situation and potentially just a different office, like, because this thing just looks tapped out at Washington State, right? Like, and we know the air raid, but we like the air raid, and I hate to speak on it in this capacity, right? Because there have been good teams, but we know that there's times where the air raid can just be tapped out, and there's like a lot of schemes when it just becomes about talent, right? When you're just going against a superior team, then it's the air raid, there's nothing that it can do for the quarterback. So him transferring to a different situation where he's probably going to go to a team where they have better competition, hopefully that can lead to some consistency for Cam Ward. Started the season, DP, I'm counting it 3, 2, that's 5, plus 4 is 9, right? It's 13, believe 13 touchdowns and no interceptions to start the season, DP. Then he finished off the season, right? He had 4 games with only 1 touchdown, right? Had a game with no touchdowns, had a game with 2 interceptions. So it's the sputtering down the back end. He finished the season against Washington State. He threw for 3 touchdowns, but also threw for 2 interceptions, right? So it's him sputtering down the back end, and you just wonder if that's where it's the talent threshold. So for me, if you ask me, DP, I'm going to say I like the transfer. Now, you're going to ask me, where do I think he needs to go, right? I think there's a lot of teams that can use Cam Ward. obviously, talk about the Ohio States and stuff, but I go to the SEC. You know who he would ball out with? I think you put this guy with Lane Kiffin stock all the way up, right? Because we talked about Jaxson Dart and how Jaxson Dart gets the job done. Cam Ward is more talented than Jaxson Dart. Cam Ward is a step or two above Jaxson Dart. And if you have Lane Kiffin scheming things wide open, you're playing in the SEC, right? Ole Miss, I believe they were a 9-10 win team this year, right? Like they're a good football team. I think about Ole Miss, then Texas A&M. Now this is a little different, a little interesting. And the reason I'm saying Texas A&M is because they have everything else except for a quarterback. The trenches are there. They've recruited well in the trenches. They recruited well at the offensive skill position, right? Now they just need a quarterback that can get some things done. And if you get it done at Texas A&M, you imagine playing Alabama at night, right? You're playing LSU to finish the season. You have to play Florida, potentially Georgia. I'm not sure what the schedule is. Texas is back into the Big 12 next year. Texas is into the SEC. Oklahoma's into the SEC. So you have some big time matchups. And if you have that type of explosiveness, you talk about the Johnny Manziel situation, right? How that thing just took the world by storm, took college football by storm. This can be that potentially that type of transfer because Texas A&M has the weapons on the outside.
No, I like that, Keith. I think for me, when I think about his decision to transfer, I agree with you. Right, go somewhere where more talent is, man. You know what I'm saying? Where in that air raid, I think I was texting my guy Dan Harm. Shout out to my boy Dan. I was like, man, I would love to see him in more of a more pro style offense where it's not drop back 50, 60 times a game. You know what I'm saying? Like, give him a legit run game, give him a legitimate defense, and let's see him play some pro style football where it's like, hey, Cam, you don't have to be the savior all the time. You know what I mean? And just where, you know what, instead of throwing it 45, maybe throw it 32 times this game. We hand the ball off for 25, 30 times between our running backs, and our defense is playing quality and complementary football. I'm not going to lie, because I think about Ollie Gordon in Oklahoma State. I would love to see him at Oklahoma State in the Big 12, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? With the opportunity where you got a legit NFL running back in the backfield with you. You think about the play action pass, the RPO game, different things like that. And he's in terms of Cam Ward, he's athletic. But Keith, I go to man, I'm not gonna lie. I go to the Big Ten, and I think about Oregon, right? No Bo Nix. It depends on what happens with another quarterback that's in the portal that was linked to them last year, DJU, who we'll talk about at a different day. But I think about Oregon and the potential of being with a Dan Lanning, a well-coached team filled with talent, filled with speed and playmakers on the outside that will run the football, right? With Bucky Irvin and the rest of those backs, play power football, get downhill, a good offensive line, right? I think that's a good spot. But Keith, I can't lie. I gotta go to Ohio State. That's the spot for me, baby. You know what I'm saying? Kyle McCord into the transfer portal himself, because he already saw the writings on the wall. He knew that it was they didn't commit to him after this week or this past weekend or whatever when Ryan Day had his meeting. I think you put Cam Ward with the litany of 5-star receivers they have there. They have good running backs. They continue to, cycle in new defensive players and draft prospects. I just truly believe that's the perfect time. Ryan Day, you want to knock off, Jim Harbaugh. Well, Jim Harbaugh probably won't be there. You want to knock off Michigan finally? You don't want to get them off your back. I think you bring a Cam Ward in from the transfer.
Yeah, DP. I feel like it's going to be Sharon Moore next year. DP.
Yeah,
Harbaugh might be coaching the Raiders next year. DP. But I agree with you. I think Ohio State is definitely the safest situation, man. When you talk about just weapons, right? They're gonna go to Texas. They're gonna go to California. They're gonna go to Florida. They're gonna go wherever they need to go to get those first round wide receivers, and they have them stacked, ready to roll. So you're gonna have so many skill position players, obviously big time lights. So everything makes sense for Ohio State. But my sneaky pick is I like Ole Miss. I like Ole Miss in that situation. But DP, let's keep this thing going and keep it flowing, man. With quarterback Riley Leonard, right? The Duke transfer, like we said, man, 6'4", 200+ pounds, mobile, can tote the rock, right? All signs are leading to him going to Notre Dame. We want to talk about that. What does that mean for the Fighting Irish? Are they true contenders? Is this not an overrated type situation? And what does Riley Leonard bring as a quarterback and as a draft prospect? Coming up next.
When you're hiring for your small business, you want to have as many top tier candidates as possible to interview. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. Guys, LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn is not just another job board, guys. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates, so easy. In fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats that it's hard, and they might not have the time or the resources to hire the way that they want to. Okay, so post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That is linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Riley Leonard, Keith, leaving the Duke Blue Devils, and all signs. You look 24/7 Sports, 1.com. Everybody says he's. I think they came out, recently. He's going on his first visit soon to Notre Dame. I think Marcus Freeman is about to get him a new quarterback, Keith. And for me, when I think about the decision to transfer for Riley Leonard, I think it's a good one. A lot of the draftable talent that was on Duke are heading to the draft on both sides of the ball, offense and defense, 9 times out of 10. And I think his coach, Mike Elko, is either leaving or he already left and took another job.
Yeah.
So
he's going to Texas A&M. He's at Texas A&M now.
Okay, so that make what I'm saying. So it's like he could have went to A&M, but I think the spotlight for Riley Leonard going to Notre Dame is going to be big, and I think this move can help him as a draft prospect. Right, getting into they're going to run a pro style offense, but they're going to this is a big, physically gifted kid, man. This young man is a legitimate run threat. Right, he's not the Anthony Richardson and stuff like that, but we watched it against Clemson. You go back to 2022, Boston College. He's done it to multiple defenses where either plays break down and he makes a long 50, 60-yard run with his legs, or it's the QB power, QB counter, zone read. He has that. He has a good arm. He throws with good touch and time, good touch and arc on his passes down the field. I think this offense as well, they know how, like, Notre Dame knows how to give you a good offensive line. Right, they've shown that, and I think that the main thing is going to be able to keep and bring in some playmakers with him. But when you have a good quarterback, it makes the situation more appealing. So I think it's going to be a plus, a positive for his 2025 NFL draft status and his draft stock, because this was a guy who started off pretty solid this year, Keith, and then you just saw that he did get hurt, but you just kind of saw the passing productivity start to dip, and I think he wants to kind of get back to that, and I think Notre Dame will allow him to get a full year of that, Keith. So I'm actually excited about him potentially. Like I said, it's not done until the ink is dry, right? But it looks like he's going to Notre Dame.
Yeah, DP. I don't know if I'm excited. I think it's interesting, right? And the reason and the reason I say that is because what Riley Leonard did last year, right? You're talking about. He threw for 1,000 yards. Obviously, he was hurt, right? He missed, I think, 5-6 games. So he missed pretty much half of the season, right? And the passing is 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions on the season, right? He went 1, 2, 3, 4 games without throwing a touchdown, right? Then the other 3 games, he threw 1 touchdown, right? That's how you get to 3 touchdowns. So I guess I'm looking at is that the development as a passer. Now, you talk about him as a draft prospect and what could come out of this Notre Dame situation. I think it's exactly what you said, the run game, right? The ability to run the football, to take some off of him, and then now he has to just be that efficient game manager, but the game manager plus a little bit because he has the ability to also run the football, right? And I think that part is important, that he can do some different things running the football, because he won. I mean, the Clemson game, right? He won that game with his legs at the end of the day, right? I think he threw for 175 yards, but it was the running with his legs that he was able to change some stuff. This is a big boy. He's 6'4", 240 pounds. So I think if he's able to just be put in some advantageous situation, he can significantly raise his draft stock, DP, to get to a certain threshold to where we're talking about him next year's draft, because I thought we were going to talk about him in this year's draft as a viable draft option, as a middle of the round guy, because he's a efficient quarterback.
Yeah, and I think that's where I think, going to a little more of a pro style system kind of help him develop, reading certain coverages and seeing things differently. But also remember, he played against Notre Dame. He faced that defense, and he knows what that defense was able to do and keep Sam Hartman in games where he doesn't have to carry the load. And I think that's really appealing to him. And Marcus Freeman is a really good coach as well. So I think the main thing now is going to be for that situation, get some more playmakers in there, get guys healthy and everything, but they're going to be able to run the football, have a good offensive line, right? Build and have a great defense like they typically always have for the Fighting Irish. And that way for him, I think offensively they'll be able to work his legs into the game plan, right? But then now it's okay. The light's going to be bright for you over there.
That's what I was about to say.
Can you handle that? And can you take that next step as a passer?
Listen, whether it's good or bad, people gonna see it, right? This is not Duke.
They're gonna give you prime time opportunities.
Oh yeah, you're gonna have your show. You're gonna have your show time. So it should definitely be interesting for Riley Leonard, man. And you talk about salt circling, getting ready, talking about next year's draft, talking about the transfer portal, talking about how it affects college football, talking about how it affects draft prospects. This should definitely be interesting. The reason we want to talk about this, right, was because these were draftable guys this year, right? Like, these were guys that were draftable that we talked about. It was like, we got to talk about these guys heading into the transfer portal. Obviously, with that being a thing, it kind of switches some things up, because all three of these quarterbacks can potentially enter the NFL draft, right? And draftable prospects. But DP, I said all three, man. We still have one left to go, and it's probably my favorite guy, the gunslinger himself, right? Dillon Gabriel, man, quarterback from Oklahoma. After a really good year, man, throwing for 30 touchdowns and only 6 interceptions. He hit the portal. He told Brent Venables, "I'm out," which I thought was amazing. was crazy. I thought he was close to the NFL draft and hitting the portal. But we're about to have this conversation about Dillon Gabriel, the player, the prospect, where he's going to transfer, what school we like, coming up next.
Finding the perfect holiday gift for your partners or spouse is a challenge every single year. No matter how much and how great you know them, it's still a challenge to find something that'll make them happy, right? How special is it to go through life with your partner and experience all the milestones together? Finding a truly meaningful gift can be tough when your loved ones are so important to you. But with Skylight Frame, all the best moments of your past and present are right there to see and relive. Skylight is a touchscreen photo frame that you can send photos to straight from your phone, and they appear in seconds. Okay, you can even preload photos before the box is open. That is an awesome gift to have. How can you get this gift? Simple. As a special limited time offer for our listeners, get $15 off your purchase of a Skylight Frame when you go to skylightframe.com/lockedon. To get $15 off your purchase of a Skylight Frame, just go to skylightframe.com/lockedon. That's SKYLIGHTFRAME.com/lockedon. Dillon Gabriel, Keith, like you said, strong season in 2023.
Really good season.
Strong season. And when I saw the alert that he entered the portal, I was like, for what? Like, you know what I mean? I was like, why? Because you're on a good team. You have a really good coach. And then for me, we talk about it last segment with Riley Leonard. It's the spotlight, baby. Now Oklahoma's not in the Big 12 no more. You're going to the SEC. You get the opportunity to be an upset maker, right? You get put on the schedule against a Georgia. You get put on the schedule against Alabama. And you think about it, if you're able to do what you did against Texas, against one of those two schools, right, Keith, and play the way he played. This is like I remember during the season, people were calling him, from a draft prospect standpoint, they were saying that he's he's like Tua, but he's Tua with actual rushing ability. Like, he had almost 500 yards rushing this year. He's a lefty. He's from Hawaii, I believe. This is going to be his third team. UCF, Oklahoma. I don't know where he lands, Keith, but I'm going to be honest. I don't like the decision to transfer. I think that he was right at home in terms of, like, for his game at Oklahoma.
Yeah, I think this is a situation. DP, he has to be going big, right? Like, this has to be something where it's Ohio State, USC, I'm trying to even think what's the next, like, you know what I'm saying? Like it has to be a like one of these top echelon program, because Oklahoma is a top program, right? And you were putting up numbers, and why not just be comfortable and go ahead and press repeat? And then, I mean, because you look at his measurables, and this is why people aren't talking about him that much, because he's listed at 5'11", 200 pounds, right? So he could potentially be 5'10" and a quarter, 200, right? So it's one of those things where, honestly, the crazy part was, DP, I had watched some of them, and he was just going to be one of my draft sleepers, right? Not saying that he was going to get to the NFL and like the NFL though, but I think he was going to be a guy that nobody's talking about. And then come March, once people jump into the film, everyone's going to be like, oh man, this guy's a pretty good quarterback. He can be a solid draft guy, right? And if you put him in the right scheme, you can get some production out of him. I'm looking at this, DP, and I'm talking about potential for schools. The only thing I could think of is Lincoln Riley and that connection, right? But at some point, if you Brent Venables, you're kind of like, hey, bro, leave my players alone, right? Like I'm here now, leave my players alone. Like you took, because was it Raleek Brown, and I think now the running back Raleek Brown, he left Oklahoma to go to USC. And then I'm like, now I think he's leaving USC too. So Dillon Gabriel, I think he's an extremely talented guy. If I'm a bevy of teams, man. There are a lot of teams that can just use what he can do, and he's an accurate 3-level thrower, right? He's mobile. He can make plays. He can make plays out of structure. I think this is a good quarterback prospect, BP. And if I'm a team with any question mark at quarterback, I'm going after Dillon Gabriel.
I'm gonna tell you a team that there's a lot of buzz around is Oregon. That Oregon is going after him heavy. And I think another, like we talked about it with Cam Ward a little bit. Like, I mean, this is a talented team, a national, a playoff contending team. If we had the 12-team playoff this year, Oregon's in. Keith, they are in, right? Heck, if we only had the 10-team playoff, they were in the top 10. So Dan Lanning knows how to recruit. He knows how to coach. I think, like you said, everything you said about Dillon Gabriel is facts. And like I said, he's got to be going big because he was in a great situation at Oklahoma. Right? Like, they have talent on the offensive line, have talent at wide receiver. Their defense is talented. He has a great coach, an up-and-coming head coach in Brent Venables. It's like, what else do you want? Do you want the bigger stage? Do you want the brighter lights? Listen, you can think you want that, but until those lights are shining bright into your face and it's fourth quarter against another perennial powerhouse in a potential playoff deciding situation, you don't know if you're really ready for it. So that's my only thing is like I didn't understand the decision, but we're gonna find out when he does declare on the destination. But I think Oregon is a good one. There's been some talks about Ohio State. I think everybody's connecting Ohio State to all these talented quarterbacks at this point. But I think for me also, Keith, I look at another team I think that could be a good spot for him. I mean, crazy enough, I think Clemson. I know you know what I'm saying? I know you got Cade Clemson, you got Christopher Vicinnia, who's like a 4 or 5-star kid sitting behind Cade, but Cade did not play well at all this year. And that's concerning. We had a lot of smoke for DJU when he's out there turning the ball over and messing up and all that type of stuff. We got to have that same smoke for Cade. Cade was not good this year. And I think we think about I think Garrett Riley, I think is the coach, the OC. I think Lincoln's brother, he's the OC over at Clemson. So that air raid type of offense, they'll run the ball. Offensive line is pretty good. They'll probably still have Phil Maffa next year. They did lose, I think, one receiver to the transfer portal, but they got like 3, 4, 5-star guys coming in from this draft, from this recruiting class. So I think Clemson could be a place that I would like to see him go because I think he could take that job from Cade.
That one, and then I don't know what the depth of their team is. Florida State with them losing Jordan Travis.
Yes,
I just thought about them.
That's a great situation with Mike Norvell.
Yeah, they could be potential players, and I think that's the fit, right? You're going back to Florida. You were at UCF. You're going back to Florida. They able to, he did a great job in the transfer portal last year. You know what type of offense he runs in. But I'll say this, that potentially Dillon Gabriel could be a more efficient and effective quarterback in that offense and in that scheme. So we'll see how that go. Don't quote me on that, DP. Don't hold me to that, because if Dillon Gabriel plays bad next year, don't hold me to that. But I just watched him at Oklahoma. He's able to get some things done, and if they could hit the portal and bring in more offensive, skill positions and weapons, Florida State could definitely be that killer combination of top of the conference, right? The big lights, everything. Like, they can. Florida State's that
100%.
team that can check all of those boxes, and it makes some sense. So, but DP, talking about makes sense, man. It always makes sense over here at the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, man. I want to say shout out to our everydayers, man. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day, man. Y'all tapping with us 24/7, 365, man. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That is DP Damian Parson, man, my co-host. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. Like we always like to say, man, y'all talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers, man. We will have Rookie Spotlight tomorrow. We have more content getting ready for the NFL weekend, more draft, your draft prospect conversations coming up. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.